Hi everyone and welcome back to episode 2 of the Sunday Sew Club. This week we're going to be making 2 versions of a hair scrunchie. You've probably seen it everywhere, all over your Pinterest. Every time I go onto Pinterest for a scroll, I see them. So I've decided to do 2 versions of the scrunchie. One is slightly easier than the other, and they are both simple, but one is slightly more challenging. So if you're brand new to this, probably start with the first one, and if you are a bit more experienced, then jump in with the second version too. So the 2 versions are the one that I have in now, which is the scrunchie that has lace involved. And then the other version, the simpler version, is exactly the same, but it's just the scrunchie without the lace. So the first part of the video will be the simpler version of the scrunchie, and the second part of the video will be the version with the lace added. This is the material that I've used for the project. It's just 100% cotton, and it is the same material that I've made my outfit out of as well, and it's just perfect, lightweight and easy to use. You can use a slightly heavier fabric if you'd like to. It may just be a bit harder when you're pulling through and turning the fabric out, but apart from that, you can use any fabric really, and it's the perfect project for any leftover fabrics that you have or fabric scraps. So for today's project, you're going to need some fabric, which we're going to cut at 76 centimetres by 16.5 centimetres. You're going to need some elastic. This one that I'm using is around 6mm wide, and I've cut this to 23 centimetres long. You're going to need some thread for your machine, some pins, a safety pin to thread the elastic through, and then for this video I'm going to show 2 demonstrations. I'm going to show you how to do it without lace, and then I'm also going to show you how to do it where you can add lace if you like. So first of all, we're going to cut our material out, and we're going to cut a piece of material that is 76 centimetres by 16.5, and for the first example this is going to be for the scrunchie without the lace. So we're going to measure out 76 by 16.5. Okay, so if you've opted to make the scrunchie without lace, then this is the panel that you're going to need, which was 76 centimetres by 16.5. And if you're going to make the scrunchie with lace, then you'll need to make your panel slightly bigger, just by 2 centimetres. So it's still 76 centimetres wide, and then it's just 18.5 centimetres down. So the process only slightly differs between the two if you're adding lace or you're not. With the option if you're not adding lace, we're just going to get our piece and we're going to fold it in half lengthways, and we're going to do right sides of the fabric facing into each other. And then we're going to sew a straight stitch all the way along, but we're going to leave 2 centimetres at both ends. So we're going to set off sewing 2 centimetres in, and we're going to end 2 centimetres in. Okay, so on our machine we're just going to start sewing from the bottom of the pin, and we're going to back stitch at the start and finish with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. And then as we approach the end, we just stop 2 centimetres before the end where we've placed our pin, and we do a back stitch. We're now going to turn the tube inside out. You can either use a safety pin for this, or you can just do it by hand, as it's quite easy to just push it all through to the other side. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half, and then we're going to use both of these ends. We're going to match them up, so from corner to corner all the way around. So I'm just going to pop a pin in, can be a bit fiddly this to put pins in all the way around. So I usually just put a pin in at the start and then I keep pulling it round as I'm sewing. So what we're going to do now is sew all the way around this edge, following round from one side to the other with a 1 centimetre seam allowance. It can be a bit fiddly this part, so just try to go slow and not to rush. So back stitch at the beginning and end, remove that pin and then just be careful not to catch it underneath, under the foot. It's just a bit fiddly, but slowly follow it round. Just keep pulling it round that little bit more. You can lift the foot up while you pull it under and pull this one round on top. Align the edges. So now you should have something that looks like this, a loop of fabric with the little opening here on the side, which is what we did earlier when we left the 1 to 2 centimetres at either end. And what we're going to do now is we're going to lay the loop flat. We're going to measure the loop 7 centimetres and then we're just going to mark halfway, so 3.5 centimetres. And we're just going to mark along the centre of this loop all the way across. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. Flatten it down and then measure down 3.5 centimetres. And across. Okay, now so now we've got a line that's centre all the way around. We're going to sew 0.5 centimetres away from the line this way and the same again for the other side. So in the end we end up with a channel that's 1 centimetre wide. On the first loop we're going to go all the way round, and on the second loop, which is closest to the gap here, we're going to go all the way around, but we're just going to leave a 2 centimetre gap here, a centimetre either side of this seam, just so that we can get the elastic in. I'm just going to remove this part of the machine to make it easier to manoeuvre around. So starting with the back loop and the opening here, we're going to go this side. And I'm just going to use the edge of my foot here on this little ridge line as my 0.5 centimetre guide. And then we're going to do the same again on the other side, but this time be sure to leave a 1 to 2 centimetre gap at the end. Okay, so as we're getting to the end, we're just making sure to stop and leave that gap. And then we'll close that up later on. Okay, now we're going to get our elastic and our safety pin, and we're just going to pop the safety pin onto the elastic, and then I like to use another safety pin as well, just to attach it to the fabric so that we don't lose it. So find your opening, and then we're going to pop it through the pin into the elastic channel, so through this gap on the side and then straight into the elastic channel here. And then I like to just pop the safety pin into the fabric here at the end, just so that we don't lose it when pulling it round. And then we're just going to guide the safety pin through the channel until we get to the other side. Pulling it through. And when we get it through to the other end, just pull it out. remove the safety pin. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to overlap by about 1 centimetre either side on the elastic, and then we're going to pop a pin in like this, and then using a zigzag stitch on your machine, we're just going to stitch forward and back a few times on the elastic. Once you've got the footer down, you can then remove the pin. Forward and back a few times, there you go. And then we're just going to pull the elastic through then. All the way around, you should have something looking like this now. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to go back to a straight stitch on our machine, and we're just going to stitch along here to close that channel, and then we are also just going to tuck in the edge here, and we're just going to close this opening here just along the edge with a little stitch close to the edge. And there you have your finished scrunchie without any lace. Okay, now for the version with the lace. So what we've got is we've still got the same measurement lengthways. So we've got 76 centimetres, and then we did cut an 18.5 centimetre panel downwards, and then I have just split that panel in half exactly. So 9.25 centimetres down, I drew a line and I've just split this panel into two. So what we're going to do to add our lace is we're just going to measure 75 centimetres, and we're just going to cut 2 pieces of lace the same. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pin our lace to the edge with the lace facing in. And then we're going to do the same again on the other side. So with the lace facing in towards the other one, we're just going to pin along this edge. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to stitch this lace in place now. Just using the edge of my foot as a guide. And we're just going to straight stitch the lace trim onto the panel. Okay, so once you've sewn the lace on, we're now going to place the other panel on top. And we're going to sew with a 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way down on both sides, ensuring that the lace is flat down and enclosed within the seam all the way along. You can pin this if you like, but I'm not going to use pins. But if you are a beginner and you're not confident without pinning, then you can put some pins in. So be sure to leave a 1 to 2 centimetre gap before you start stitching at the start and finish. But then we're going to flip it over and do the same again for the other side. And now we're going to turn our tube inside out. So you can add a safety pin here just to make it a bit easier. Add a safety pin and then just send it through to the other side. Give it a little pull as you're going. Open it up and just flatten it out. Okay, so you'll have something that looks like this now. And what we're going to do is we're just going to measure the centre out. So it's 7, so at 3.5 we are going to draw a line at 3.5. It's just easier to do the line first at this point, just because of the lace. On the other version, it's easier to do it in the loop, but in this case, just because of all the lace and it slightly brings it in, it is easier to do it when you're laying it flat. We're going to bring both sides together and now we're going to join them at these top seams. So align the top seams, pop a pin in, and then we're just going to sew a 1 centimetre seam allowance from the edge, and we're just going to make our way all around the loop. Bit by bit, just joining them together. It is a little bit tricky, but if we just go slow, then you'll be fine. I like to remove this part of the sewing machine at this point. And then just be careful not to catch any of the loop under each other. And we're just going to start with a back stitch, sewing all the way around, keeping the edges aligned. Okay, so now you'll have your fabric loop, and then the line that we drew earlier as the centre point, we're now going to sew 0.5 centimetres either side of that line to create a 1 centimetre channel down the centre. And we're going to start at the seam here, and we're going to do the first loop all the way round and close it, and we're going to do that the furthest away from the opening that we have on the side, from the gap we left earlier. And then on the second loop, when we go round, we're going to leave a 2 centimetre gap so that we can get the elastic through the gap on the side into the channel. Okay, now we've sewn the channel, we're going to insert the elastic. So just start by putting the elastic on the end of your safety pin. And then pop a safety pin on the other end of the elastic, which is what we're going to attach to the fabric, just so we don't lose it when threading it round. Just like to attach it next to the gap. And then start threading the elastic through, into the gap, and then into the gap that you've left in the channel. Once you've got it through to the other side, just remove the safety pin, pull it through, and then remove the safety pin off the other side. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to overlap the elastic by 1 centimetre either side. We're going to pop a pin in, and then we're just going to zigzag stitch over the top, forwards and backwards a few times, just to secure it. You can remove your pin, and then we're just going to move the elastic around the scrunchie. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to find that gap where we threaded the elastic through, and we're just going to tuck it in, and we're just going to secure it with an edge stitch here. And that is your lace scrunchie finished. I think with the lace scrunchie it adds so much more depth and volume. And this is them both next to each other using the same material, just one has lace added and one doesn't. They're both perfect for summer, and they're both the perfect gift to make for someone. I hope you all enjoyed today's tutorial, and I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to the channel, and please leave some comments below of anything else that you would like me to do tutorials on and how you can make. Stay tuned for episode 3 next week.